JBR Podcast.
Wake up and check it out.
Where music and life connects. Let's go.
Yeah, Big Daddy Mike Schindelka. What's going on, man?
Not too bad, man. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So, tell me, how was your gig last week?
Oh, it was great. I always love playing the Dudney because the staff are awesome. The crowd is into the music, and I mean, they got a great backup lineup there with Jerry and Greg and all the boys, and Ricky on bass there. Always a great show, great backing band, and it was great. Did about an hour for the first set, and then Kelly Mitchell came out, and she came up and tore it up as she usually does, and we had Paul Hendricks come down and play. It was a great night. It was awesome.
Nice. I knew you were down there. I was earlier before Paul showed up. We were at the hospital there visiting John.
Right.
And,
yeah. Jeez.
Bringing the jam to John at the hospital there.
Oh,
yeah, that's cool. So
awesome.
Did you play your hit song On Top of Old Smoky and Wheels on the Bus?
Oh, absolutely. You got to do that one. You Are My Sunshine. All the back road classics.
So what's been going on with you, man? I know we like for a while there we didn't talk much. What were you doing? Working in the movies, or what was going on?
Yeah, I actually was working. I got a couple shows back to back this year, and I knew there was a slowdown coming, so I kind of focused on that just to bring the bread in. Just finished doing Upload Season 4. It's on Amazon, and it's the final. That's it. The show's done. So I just finished up with that, and now I got some time off, which I'm really looking forward to because now I can focus more on music again. So I'm definitely looking at getting out there and playing some more for sure. So
when you say bringing in the bread, does that mean the music business isn't paying the bills? Because it isn't for me either.
No, I know it's a little bit dry for gigs in the West Coast for sure. It's not like what it used to be, unfortunately. But I hear a lot of people are going down to Mexico and playing down there and getting lots of work. And I don't know if that's an option, but I think for here, I mean, unless you're doing studio work, teaching, and gigging, it's pretty hard to make it full time here these days.
For sure, yeah. You got to wear a lot of different hats. You say like Mexico and stuff. You were on the cruise ships for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, I did that for almost 9 years. Started off, I got subbed in because the guitar player from this one band called Derringer, he had come back. He had family, so I just happened to be at the right place and right time. And I was at Glenn Pearson's jam at Donegal's pub. I just happened to walk in that night. I wasn't going to show up, and something told me to go. So I went down there, and all of a sudden I walk in, and Glenn says, "Hey, you want to work on the cruise ships?" And Jamie Mahaden, who was the bass player, says, "Yeah, we're looking for a guitar player." So I said, "Sure." I'd been laid off work, I was perfect timing. So we arranged a meet and greet with the band, and we talked it over, and they seemed to like what like what I had to offer. So I ended up getting a gig and started back in January of 2008, I believe, and stayed there until October 2016. So, close to 9 years on the ships, so it was good. It was a great experience for sure.
Yeah, that's a big run. So where were some of the places you went?
Well, we started off doing the Caribbean. That was a primary run. We were a new band, didn't have too many songs. So they like to put bands like that onto 7-day runs. So we do the Caribbean, and then we luckily crossed over the Atlantic and got to do the Baltic season. So that was, for my first contract, was pretty neat. Saw St. Petersburg, Russia, Estonia, Poland, Finland, Norway. It was really, really good. And then on the way over across the Atlantic, we got to stop in, the Maldives, and we did Portugal and France, England. So we got to see some of those ports, downtown London. So it was good. And then eventually what happened is once Carnival took over, we saw the writing on the wall. They started cutting bands, of course, let's make more profit. So we upped our game, got costumes, we played more types of music, and eventually that led us to them saying, okay, well, you have enough variety. Let's put you on some world cruises. So that allowed us to see a lot of ports where, that a lot of people don't get to see. I mean, we did, Asia, Southeast Asia. We went through the Middle East, the Mediterranean, did a lot of Australia, New Zealand. So got to see a lot of cool stuff for sure.
That's amazing, man. So like, I've never done the cruises, and obviously, I know a bunch of guys like you that have. I'm curious because, when you play clubs and festivals, you get to mingle with the crowd, go hang out, party with them, this, that, the other. Like, are you able to do that on the cruise ships?
Yeah, you can, in between sets, sometimes we'd have passengers that would really like what we have to offer. So, come over and have a drink with us. So it's actually encouraged that we do that, because then it makes the passengers more kind of comfortable on the ship. They feel like they're part of what's going on. So there's a lot of times where we, meet up with passengers, even on shore. There's a lot of times where I'd go off, and I remember one time we were in Istanbul, and there was a group. They had met up. I guess the husband and wife were from Chicago, and the other couple were from Sydney. And the thing about Australians, I love Australians. They are the nicest people. But I'll tell you, they know how to party when it's time to party. They work hard and they party hard. And we were in port just about to go to the ship. I had 10 minutes to make it on board. Not even 10 minutes. And we're sitting and have just finished my pint with these fellows. And the Australian guy goes, "Oh, you got time for another pint?" I said, "I'm going to be on board in like less than 10 minutes. He says, "Oh, that's more than enough time. Get another, I'm a pint and, go on board." So, but yeah, I met a lot of really nice people from all over the world, and they always had to invite, if you're ever in our area, you got a place to stay. So it was a really kind of cool way to not only meet crew from around the world, but just passengers as well. And so we were able to mingle for sure. But you weren't allowed to get intimate with the passengers because that's a no-no. So. Although I've heard of that rule being broken a few times on ships, so
I'm sure it has been broken for sure. Yeah. So, and then you came back. What'd you say? 2016, 2018, or something like that?
Yeah, 2016. We all decided it was time to pack it in. I know the drummer. He was in a relationship, and they were going to get married, and we were all, we're tired and burnt out, and it was time to call it quits. We had a good run, and 2016 got off ships, and it was just kind of like, okay, well, now what do I do? So I ended up working at a warehouse, and just trying to pick up gigs here and there. So I get some odd work, doing, covering a jam session, or just one-off gigs. But it was kind of a reality wake up, because being away for that long, even though I would come home for little bits, I would just be home to visit, and then I'd be off again. When I came back, just to see all the changes in the city with regards to like infrastructure and the music venues, and it was a lot can change in almost 9 years. So it was pretty eye-opening, that's for sure.
Yeah, so like 2008 to 2016. Yeah, well, during that period, the Yale closed down, the Fairview closed down. There was a lot, like you hit that marker where a lot of shit changed, especially in the blues world in Vancouver. Like that's night and day.
It was crazy. It was sad, because the Yale was our blues bar, and the Fairview was kind of like the auxiliary blues bar. And then they're gone. Like what, and luckily, I think the Dudney in some respect has picked up a bit of the slack, but it's not a full-time blues venue, and I think now it seems to be, just there's a blues Thursday's blues jam at the beer shack. That's the blues bar for Thursday night. Sunday night's the Dudney, so it's kind of evolved into that. So I guess the bright side is it kind of changes it up a little bit venue wise, so at least there's something happening. But
it all moved to the suburbs.
Yeah, it's kind of
the whole demographics changed.
Yeah, downtown's a little more crazy than it used to be too. So
for sure. So what else is going on with you now?
Not much. Now that I'm off work, I've got to, I've filled in a couple times. I filled in to help out Glenn Pearson to cover the jam night. When he can't make it, he usually calls me up, and he's done a lot for me. I remember sneaking in underage to the Donegall's pub there for the blues jams back in the day, and so he kind of took me under his wing and guided me along the way to get gigs and stuff, and and then just it's now he gets me to help out if he can't make it, and I've got the a Friday night thing that's going to start up, just me and Paul Fisher on sax. We're going to try a duo thing, see how that works. And I'm just trying to pick up gigs here and there. I'm kind of toying with the idea of starting my own project, Power 4-piece. And we'll see where it goes. It's kind of in the planning phase because I've just gotten back off work. So now I've got, I'm catching up on stuff around the house and taking the guitars in to get serviced and all that stuff. So that's what it looks like for now is what's going to happen.
Now, yeah.
I'm going to go down to the there's a jam tomorrow. I think Darren Harry's going to be the special guest. It's in Steveston. I'm trying to remember the name of the bar, but I guess there's a jam out there that's pretty hopping. So I'm going to go check that out and see what happens, and hopefully work picks up in the new year, or something will happen with music. So I've got a few things in the boiler for sure. So.
That's awesome. Is that common with the film industry where things kind of come in waves? I've known a couple guys that were in that, and some people that do like some of the catering for film and whatnot.
Yeah, it does have their winter slowdown. There's a summer slowdown because a lot of the directors and actors they want to take the summer off with the kids. So those are the traditional ones. And then unfortunately we're juggling, I think, like 3 main unions, and then there's some other smaller unions. So every time a contract comes up, they might not go on strike, but everybody wants to hold off production until it's everything's good to go. So unfortunately, every time a contract comes up, that can slow things down. And of course, there's tax credit breaks. We're not offering as good a value for that here in BC as they are in like Winnipeg, Calgary. I think England, they're offering 100% tax credits. So a lot of film is leaving right now, and we're hoping that the government that's in power can rectify that. So it's just, I call it dazzle dollars, because it's you get the busy period and you can make all this money, and a lot of people get caught in the trap. Oh, I'm going to buy a boat or an RV. You get going on that kind of thing, and then all of a sudden, we're on strike the writer's strike was 150 days, and all of a sudden everybody comes back, and it's like they're not coming back to make money for themselves. They're coming back to pay off their credit cards. So it can be a trap if you're not careful. So it's a fun industry. When you're busy, you're working lots, but it's one of those ones you got to be really careful and prepare for the drought. So it's, and unfortunately we just came off that writer's strike not too long ago, and now we're in another drought because of economics and politics. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens, I guess. So,
unlike the music industry, where when it's busy, you're still making no money.
Right, exactly. What's the old saying?
At least you're making money when it's busy.
Yeah, who else spends $5,000 in gear, drives 200 kilometers, spends $100 in gas, and make $50 in a free beer?
Yeah, exactly. A musician. I think that's why the industry is, not so good these days. And I talk about this almost on every podcast, so it'd actually be great to talk with you on it and get your insight. Where, I feel you remember the days when agents kind of booked rooms.
Yeah.
They had that standard, and again now it's like, these people that, you say in film, it's like people will strike for a while. Well, a lot of people can afford to do that. And in the music business, those people that have the day gigs and they're, and I'm no offense to anybody when they call them like the weekend warriors, where, back in the day of agents and ABC level rooms, and you could never get in unless you got through an agency. These people put on their own private shows, or they played in their garage or family picnics or whatever they would do to, for band practices a week. They would get their fulfillment or go to jam sessions. I find a lot of those bands now are like fronting the same venues nationally touring artists are playing at, which in turn gives inconsistency to the layman listener that just wants to go out and dance and have a good time, where they go to a venue and go, wow, I had a really good time Friday night. And then they go back the next Friday and they're like, oh man, that band was terrible. They don't know why technically it was terrible or the politics behind it all. But I feel like that is a big contributor to why people don't really support music as much these days, aside from, the economic factors of inflation and the fact that, people can barely pay their bills these days compared to, say, 30 years ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think unfortunately what's happened is there was that, when you say with the agencies and having that in play was kind of quality control. And unfortunately, as always happens, when the economy started getting tighter, bars, started looking at, oh, well, let's get DJs. So we know when that happened, right? We don't have to pay as much money. Then bands wanted to play, and then there's a lot of the bands that were playing the A rooms are not going to walk into a venue with 6 guys and get paid $450. So unfortunately, that left the door open for people to go in and undercut to, oh, now I can play this venue. And so, of course, the bar owner is going to love that, because they look at the instant numbers. They're not looking down the long road. So unfortunately, that lowered the quality of the entertainment out there. And, people get to the point where if the quality goes down, I'd say kind of one of this restaurant I knew years ago was a great little hole-in-the-wall shop, and they offered great food at great value. The new owners came and they started cutting corners. So once you get rid of that quality control, you might make some money at the beginning, but at the end, all of a sudden people are just going to stop showing up. And I think that's probably contributed a lot of the reason to why a lot of these music venues have either geared away. I mean, the Yale now is a country bar with a mechanical horse and canned music. So they're floundering. They're like, what are we going to offer, because this isn't working? So unfortunately, the undercutting and the lack of unionization has kind of done that to the industry. And I think the union is a necessary evil. It's got its bad points too, but I think if there was some sort of a standard, and if musicians would get together and say, we're all going to hold out and not play for this price, and then the clubs will say, okay, well, if you're demanding this price, we're going to demand that we have a quality band. So I think it's a multitude of those factors which has led to what we see going on now. And people just, still accepting, low money for gigs, so I don't know maybe things are starting to turn around now. But who knows? I mean, everything's cyclical, right? So,
yeah, it's always a race to the bottom.
Yeah. Right. If all else fails, lower standards.
I talk all the time, cause I like to get so many varying opinions on it, and obviously opinions are like assholes. We all have one. And, I have mine, of course, but I see so many musicians that agree with it, and they're like, oh yeah, it'd be nice to have collective, thoughts, and, at least when it comes to a standard of pay, you say, if musicians have been making the same $100 a gig since the 70s, it's like 50 fucking years.
Yeah.
Which is insane. And I've had conversations with some, more established musicians that, sold millions of records and had a lot of hit songs in the late 70s, early 80s. And, I was just a kid, but I was hearing stories where, my rent was, $400 for the month, and I was making $150 a night playing 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh shit, for me to pay my rent or my mortgage in like 2.5 gigs, we'd have to be making $1,000 a gig, you know, like
Exactly.
what is like rent in Vancouver, I think for a 2-bedroom is like $4,000 a month or something crazy.
Oh, it's insane. I mean, I'm lucky to be where I'm at. I'm grandfathered in at a good rate, but I mean, they're already tearing one of the buildings down. So after that, you know, I mean, it's like, it's tough, you know, and like you said, if people are going to accept low paying gigs, then the price, the rates aren't going to go up until everybody just says, we're not playing for that, you know? So it's,
Yeah. And it's funny because it's such a dog eat dog. Like I you know, a friend of mine knows people at, you know, like a little brewery, and, you know, I said, okay, we'll go out and do it. And, you know, there's nothing really there, but some good times and some beers. And, you know, it's more of a confined local thing. And a lot of the times, like my price, when people say, well, what's your price? Well, a lot of times it depends, you know, if it's a 100-seat room or 1,000-seat room, or, you know, what are the particulars? What are the budgets? You know, so that can vary, because a small place that only holds 20 people is not going to be able to afford, you know, thousands of dollars for a band. So, you know, I was just kind of going to do this thing for fun and do a favor, you know, have a good time. And then I guess, you know, when it gets advertised a little bit, I start getting, you know, some musicians reaching out and going, never heard of this place. What is it? What are they paying? How much, you know, and I've seen that happen even with the Dudney, like 15 years ago. You know, you get in there and you know, an owner gets an idea to have music, and they give you a price, and then other musicians come in, and then an owner's in the bar business, not the music booking business. So they get overwhelmed with all the people that are coming knocking on the door because they don't have an agent or booking agent or whatever, you know, managing these kind of things. And then it's like, oh, I'm paying the band, you know, $500. And then they're like, well, we'll do it for $400. We want to get in there. When they say, you know, well, I've got enough bands, you know, you wouldn't be in here for 8 months. You know, like, well, I could do it for this much, or we'll come in for that. And then, like you said earlier, the owners start to look at the till tape, and they don't look at music as a marketing expense. You know, you would never hire a cook and ask the cook, you know, how many friends are you going to bring in Friday on your shift to eat off the menu?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so it's like consistency and repetition, and you get marketing, and yeah, you know, we could go in circles on those kind of things. But that's my biggest gripe of the music business these days is bar owners don't look at the cost of live entertainment as a marketing expense. They just look at it as like, if I'm paying you X dollars, I have to make X dollars back that night. Yet they would never expect that if they bought a newspaper ad that came out that same Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Right? They're expecting us to work magic, whereas, you know, have a new cook in, like you said, and it's just like, well, if maybe the guy's great, but it's going to take a while for people to say, oh, hey, the food at this restaurant's good. Let's go check it out. It takes a while for that to happen, but they want us to magically wave a wand, bring in people on our own and say, well, we'll do a little bit of that. But the thing is, it's, you know, that's the thing where businesses in general fail a lot, is they realize that you have to put time in, and it takes time to build something. You have to put the money in and the investment, you know, and be smart about it. You build it.
Yeah, they got to build their own clientele and their own atmosphere. And that's what the Yale had. Because I always say, like, if I played the Yale on a Friday night, people went there and go, never heard of the guy. I'll pay my cover. Don't give a shit. I know that it's going to be quality. And if I played across the street, they weren't empty. So I've always said to bars, like, if I was at the level where I'm going to pack the bar every time I go, I'd be promoting my own shows all the time, or probably opening for a larger name, or playing, you know, like the Commodore. It doesn't have its own clientele because it has major acts that come in there that do draw that audience into those things. A place like the Yale, yes, while it did draw in major acts, it was founded and developed on a lot of high quality, lesser known musicians. And, you know, you build a clientele and people go, that's the place I want to go. And the Dudney's building that. You know, they've got their clientele, and there's a couple other venues throughout the Lower Mainland that have built that clientele. And I see it in other cities too. Like the Blues Can in Calgary is very much that way. They have a clientele, and every time I play there, there's a lot of people that come there because I'm there that week, but those same people will go see some of the other bands they know from out of town. But there's also the element of people that just had whatever going on that night, and I just happened to be playing there that night, and they came and paid cover because they knew there was going to be a good band. They didn't know anything about me or anything about whoever was going to be there. They just knew that they got decent food, they got good drinks, good staff, good band. Let's just go. It's a cool place. They got a clientele.
Exactly. It's like you walk in the Pan Pacific, you know you're going to pay premium price because you know you're going to get treated well, fed well, roomed well. So it's that it builds it becomes an institution on its own. Are you going to be playing the Blues Can anytime soon?
I just played there a couple months back. And I usually go 2, 3, 4 times a year. I head out there and do a couple shows. But yeah, other than that and what's going on here, there's the music business is not, you know, I had J-Dub on a few episodes ago from what we're doing here. And he's like one of the hardest working blues guys out there. The guy's touring everywhere and just playing gigs. And, you know, he made some good points. And I saw this back, you know, in the 90s when I was touring with Russell Jackson or did some stuff with Nigel Mack. It's like if you're not on that phone, or nowadays your email and phone as well, and just pounding the ground, you know, he said, if I'm not busy right now, it's because I didn't do all that work 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. And I don't work as much anymore. Like, you know, I got my businesses and day things and the side hustles and stuff outside of music, you know, as do you. So I just don't have the drive or determination myself to be on that blower as much. I do get spurts of it where I want to do an album, or I say, hey, I want to get out there and play, and I'll, you know, book something for 2 or 3 weeks, and that'll like satisfy that bug. And then, you know, maybe nothing will happen for 6 months after that, you know, and I totally appreciate your situation. You work your ass off in the movies and, you know, things dry up, but you know, they're going to pick up at some point. So, you know, you got a bit of a window, hit the ground and do it. And then you won't have to do it because you'll be busy with the movies again. Right.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think a lot of musicians get discouraged because they fail to realize, like, unless you're a sideman and even as a sideman, you're going to have to promote yourself to different acts and whatever. But as a lot of guitar players, lead front people want to put an act together, they think, okay, we're just going to have this great band. We'll put a demo down, whatever, and we'll just hand it out to whoever, and that's it. It's like, well, there's the whole marketing aspect, which people fail to realize is you got to go out there, get on the phone, sell yourself to them. You know, this is why you should hire us, you know, and put a video. And when they do their recording, do a video clip, they just on the stage and say, no, you want to see the crowd enjoying it, because that's what you have to appeal to the bar owner and say, we're going to make you money. And this is the proof. And I think that's where a lot of musicians drop the ball, and it is a lot of work, but I mean, hard work in is hard work out. I mean, you're in marketing as well. I'm dabbling into that myself, and that's, you know, some of the great marketing guys like Dylan Madden, you know, they say it's just, you got to go out there and you got to do it, and you just keep doing it. And the thing is that one thing that the truth is that if you don't give up, it'll happen eventually. It'll just happen when it happens. And I think that's the big drawback that a lot of musicians, and they get discouraged. Oh, it's not happening. You got to keep pounding the pavement. You got to, you know, tweak your video, tweak it. What's not selling? Talk to the bar owner. Why don't you hire us? Can you give us some tips? They'll be willing to help you out, you know? So I think there's that as a resource. If you talk to bar owners, is what are you looking for? What could have we done better to get a gig in your bar, you know? And that shows tenacity. And I think just that itself would be a selling feature. If at first you don't succeed in that venue you want to play in, by just doing something like that, they'll take interest. Hey, this person is obviously dedicated to their art and they want to make it work. And they'll probably tell you, says, well, you know, come back to us in a few months and we'll see what you have then. And that tenacity is, I think, what can make or break, you know. And that's, look at every top musician actor. I mean, hell, William Shatner was living in a van in the 1970s after he did Star Trek, and look at him now, he's 93, 94, and he's on top of the world, you know, just flew into space.
He's still living in a van.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And I always say it again, Sam, it's the music business. And musicians 99% of the time understand the music component of it. And even that's debatable. But the 1% of the time, the business side of it, I'm the first one to admit, like, even knowing marketing and stuff, I've been the worst at marketing myself.
Yeah.
That's always been a challenge.
Oh, me as well. I'm getting that too. It's like, where you get a gig last week? I'm like, I even forget to put it on Facebook, and I'm getting better at doing that now. And it's so it's tough. It's discouraging because musicians want to do music. They don't want to do business. But if you want to be a successful musician full time, you have to do that shitty part of. And I enjoy marketing, but it is a hassle putting together the package and calling up the agent or calling up the bar owner and all that stuff. It's work, but it's got to be done, And
I fucking hate it.
Right?
I absolutely fucking hate it. I totally do. Like, I want to start a mission and a movement, like a grassroots movement, to bring booking agents and managers back. And I've lightly, I guess, started that because anytime I talk to people that run like blues festivals, that's my world, but any festival somebody's running or society, especially here in Canada, it's like none of them make any money. And I get it. There's not a lot of money involved, and it's all like, there is for-profit and non-profit. Some people do make money in certain capacities, but so much I've seen these great efforts come forward, and then these people that don't get paid anything, they just get fucking burnt out and they quit or they pass it off to somebody else, and it completely pivots into a different direction. And I get it. And I appreciate the people that are like, I'm not here for the money. I'm here for the passion of it. It always starts that way. We got into music for that way. Like, every musician started music because they were just passionate. And then, either they, wanted to chase girls or boys or money or whatever their movement was in terms of that, or fame and fortune and all those things. But I always tell people, like, you got to monetize it somehow. You got to get something, because if you don't, it's a matter of 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. At some point, you're just going to fucking quit.
Yeah.
Done. Can't handle it. Something's going to change in your life or your work life or your personal life, whatever, that it's just going to become non-sustainable anymore. And that's why I think agents and booking agents, no problem giving them the points they want off the top to do the work, because that's not a job I like to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, you want to go to McDonald's and serve yourself, or you want to sit down and get served. You're going to pay that money for that premium service, but at the end, you're going to be rewarded for it. And it's
dude, I don't know, man. That's debatable. I think McDonald's these days is probably more expensive than some restaurants.
That's true. I was shocked. I actually went there. I don't go too often, but I went a couple of weeks ago. I was out running out to the valley and didn't have time to eat, so I stopped in there and tried that new McArch whatever thing. A great burger, but holy shit, the price! Damn, I could have gone to my Chinese restaurant and got a good plate of chow mein for that. So
exactly. I know. That's crazy. But yeah, sorry for cutting you off there. But
oh yeah, no worries. It's all good.
Forget where
I
at.
I like what you're saying about the agents, because I mean, that's they're going to provide that part that you don't want to do. And they got the connections to get you into the rooms, and and like, is there any booking agents in town anymore? And there was like a couple, but
yeah, I think there's a couple, and again, there are. They're not as plentiful, and they're not as, I don't think. Not that they're not organized, but I think I don't know of many places like Feldman Agency, like in the region that we're from, and I'm sure, and they were more of like a bigger organization. Always the small ones. Now I think it's more, passionate men and women about the music business that are like, hey, I'm not a player, but let's get some venues going. And I see it a lot. You know, people will get a venue going and they won't make money, but they'll bring guys like you and I into the works, and then, you know, they book, and then all of a sudden they don't necessarily have a solid contract with the bar. So the bar starts booking the next guy because he's doing it for $50 cheaper. And then they get frustrated with the politics, and they're not in it for the money. But again, it circles back to they're not getting paid anything. So why the fuck am I going to deal with this bullshit? I'm out of here. And I just see it time and time again. And I think that's why the music business is just stuck in this circle of hassle.
Yeah.
You know, evolving door of like great people with great intentions doing great things and then burning the fuck out.
Yeah.
And I tell you, we all get burnt out, but if you're getting paid to get burnt out, you're okay with getting burnt out a little bit longer.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because, you know, we all need money.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, you know, like being a musician, you're playing for free or for the door, you know, that's how you start out. But eventually you realize, well, you know, gas costs money, guitar strings cost money, patch cables. And then even for the people that are the agents that are doing it for the love of it, you know, that's, you know, time is money. And if you're not getting compensated in some way, it's eventually not worth it. And I think we've been in this cycle because it's the biggest financial elephant in the room is the lie that we're being lied to about what inflation is. I mean, look how far a dollar went 20 years ago compared to now, compared to wages. And they're saying, oh, inflation is only this and that. It's a lie. The middle class is being squeezed out, has been for well over a decade, if not longer. And unfortunately, you take away people's money, the necessities come first. They have to. You got to eat. You got to have a roof over your head. So bars make less money. They have to raise their prices. People aren't coming in as much. So the budget and the money that they had spare change for back in the day for hiring bands, paying the agent, that's just not there anymore. And I think that's the biggest problem. So unless you've got the heart and drive and you want to put it in for free, or get paid pittance, then it's you're hard pressed to find something worth getting paid well for these days, you know. So
yeah, well, that's why musicians, majority of them, they have, you know, some sort of side hustle or a day gig going on.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and again, I'll circle back to J-Dub because I think, you know, his pod was like really educational to open people's eyes up on what it really takes to tour like he is. And you think, like, how many more great songs could you have and how many more great albums could you make if you're playing 3 or 4 nights a week or 5 nights a week, doing tours all the time and setting things up? If an artist like that didn't have to spend all fucking day calling bars and emailing and replying and, you know, coming up with this, that, and the other, all the business side of all of this stuff, the stuff that agents used to do for multiple bands at the same time, because that's all they did, and they did it well. How much more, like, the music would be so much better, so much more creative if a musician was like, because I remember when I was on the road with Russell Jackson, we just sat around hotel rooms all day. We wrote songs, noodled on the guitar. We got better as musicians. We got tighter as a band. You know, Russell was booking a lot of that, but even in those days, you know, there were some agents and single agents that were, you know, helping out with those aspects. So we spent a lot of our time working on tunes, having rehearsals, hanging out, having a good time.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't, you know, 4 hours of gig at night, sleep, wake up, and, you know, all business all day like it is now for those musicians that are playing all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, because now you're going to, on top of that, being your own agent, you know, they would handle the things like double bookings and whatever. Now the onus of that goes on to the musician. Oh, we got double booked. Well, you still got to make sure you got gas to go to the next gig if you're on the road doing it. You know, you might have to compensate the band that you're with if they're hired guns, and it's a big risk as well that doesn't get factored in a lot of the time. And these hiccups, you know, as we've all heard the stories, the double bookings, or, you know, the artist not paying you because the owner's, you know, trying to scam or whatever. I mean, that onus now falls on you instead of the agent. So that's a big thing too, that, it can be a deterrent.
Yeah, and you're totally reminding me why I chose not to do that. It was a good decision. Yeah, no, man, fuck, I hear you. It's crazy, and yeah, everything's stacked against the musician nowadays. The way technology is, the way. This week I have Aaron Levy from Civil Radio coming out, and it's like, yeah, commercial radio is just. Like in 79, I think it was 79, that song Video Killed the Radio Star. Like it legit did. And I remember watching an interview with like Jimmy Vaughn, and he was like, oh man, now that everything's like MTV, we got to dress up and we can't wear jeans and a t-shirt and loiter around the stage anymore. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Even though that's what I love that part, and I kind of, stick to that, but it's interesting how it all evolved. You see that movie Cadillac Records where they talk about Chuck Berry, and he shows up to the gig and they're like, you're not Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry's a white country singer. And they had no idea what he looked like, but they knew his music and they were booking him because it was just all radio.
Yeah.
I guess payola these days is a little bit different than it was back in the day that I never got to participate in. But yeah, I think it's crazy, man.
It kind of, it stems back to this one thing I saw recently, a meme, and it said, remember the good old days when the rock stars were ugly but talented, And I think
that's brilliant, man. This is like a fucking 180.
Yeah, but
that's so true.
About the MTV, it kind of made me look at what's happened to music now. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some great new talent coming out. I mean, Christone Kingfish Ingram, Jesus Molina. There's that Marcin from Poland. That kid is just Paganini on the guitar. But you look at America's Got Talent, and that's there's some talent there, but overall you look at these halftime shows at the Super Bowl or concerts, it's all gymnastic. It's like all the packaging is more important than a lot of what we used to have for talent. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't talent out there, but it seems to have taken a sidestep to all the dazzle frazzle, the bright lights. And unfortunately, I'm hoping it's starting to turn around. And I think we're starting to see that, like I said, with those young artists I mentioned. But, like it did, like you said, video killed the radio star in more than one way. It killed the talent, so.
Well, I think, your comment there was like, reminded me, it was like the business did do a 180 because growing up, the whole like infrastructure of music and how to make it in the music business was all based on, let's make an album and let's have people like it and buy the album, and you're going to get rich, and then you're going to go on tour, and that's going to promote the album, and you're going to make royalties. And then things shifted to where it was like, can't make any fucking money with an album, but you got to make the album like a musical business card, because without an album, nobody's going to, give you an award nomination or want to help you build your resume to where you can go get gigs. Like you say, you got to go to a bar and go, well, here's how the crowd acts. Or, for me, it's like my Juno nomination didn't pay me shit, but it's great for getting gigs because, people are like, oh, Juno nominated.
Exactly.
That just like ends up having credibility, and then you don't have to explain yourself downstream as much, if they don't know who you are, right? It's like, oh, okay, there's some credibility there, which is, to me, is like absolute fucking horse shit, at the end of the day. But I think that like the business did do a total 180. And when you talk like American Idol, for me, it's like, that's the, Sam the Record Man and A&B Sound, they all went tits up, but the Long and McQuades and the Tom Lees are just growing because there's no money in selling to people that want to hear music. The money is in selling to people that want to make music. And you said this earlier, the guy that takes a $5,000 guitar, drives in a $500 car, 50 miles across town, and spends $100 in gas for a $50 gig.
Yeah.
Well, that's a guy that wants to make music, or a girl that wants to make music.
Yeah.
Right. So the shift is pivoted. So American Idol, what's the whole fundamental foundation of that. Is find somebody with mediocre talent, and during the process of finding somebody, we can create reality TV and sell advertisement and make money. Then that person's already popular, and the person that's gonna win is the person that people are gonna come to know, like, and be familiar with. So when it hits that commercial radio that only ever plays fucking 12 brainwashing songs, they're gonna already know it, right? And then they're gonna be a one-hit wonder. They're not gonna be a career band like the Stones, like AC/DC, like the Bon Jovis, those guys and girls. It's a one-hit wonder. And then what happens next year? That person peters out from playing stadiums to, bars, because the hardcore crowd might still follow that person because, hey, the person on American Idol, and then next year it's the same thing. Let's do a new contest of finding more people with that average talent that we can fabricate. And yes, some of them are great, and, don't send me hate mail on that. But there's like a whole new business model of it, where when I grew up, it was like, hey, if you get a good band and you can show that you can make some albums and you guys can write some good songs, that's good. Now they're like, well, we don't want you to play your song because we don't get paid.
Yeah. Well, and the whole thing is now it's a smart but duplicitous marketing strategy. Because back in the day, you got your Led Zeppelin, any big band, stadium band, the record company and the people funding it, they made a lot of money. But by doing this, think about the first time the Led Zeppelin played a venue. How much would they get paid as a band? Maybe a few $100. Look at what's his name? Some of the acts from Woodstock. Carlos Santana got paid, I think it was like $300 to play. But now 20 years later, how much or even today, how much does he get paid to play a venue? 5, 6, 7 figures. Now, by doing the America's Got Talent, what you can do is you get this person come up, they'll probably get some money for winning first prize. You get their prize or whatever. They'll get some royalties from Spotify, and they fizzle out. But look how much money that the producers and the executives make off that person of profit from airing that across the world. And then they just start from scratch. So instead of having that same person paying them more and more and more, you start from scratch with a really talented person every time. Look how much more profitability that is for the executives. And, unfortunately, it's up to the consumer to stop supporting that, or to continue supporting the person that won instead of following the new thing. So it's kind of, they're playing off of people's, the whole social media dopamine fix. You're 9 seconds now. You're not going to listen to a whole album. You're going to get your fix, right? Yeah. That's why Instagram, Facebook is so popular. People want that little fix, and then next, doom scrolling. And it's the same thing in music, Who's the newest artist? Like, there's no, I can't think of, like, compared to what we had in the 70s and 80s and 90s, who are the big stadium bands now? I mean, we used to have a list of dozens, if not more. Now it's, you got a few here and there, and, that's it. So.
I don't think it really exists beyond, a Taylor Swift. And even then, there was like the Britney Spears with a couple people, and then they kind of age out. And then there's like the Justin Bieber and they kind of all, cross over as they hit their peak and then, fade out from there. And the same thing's going to happen with someone like Taylor Swift. And I think that's, the channel of it. There's always going to be that 1% that pop out for whatever reasons. And, that's probably a whole other discussion on how and why that happens. But you're right. The big bands that just got popular from grassroots and then labels jumped on them and signed them. It's like that kind of stuff's over unless they're going to fabricate you and you're going to make they're going to make a shit ton of money and you're going to make some money. Like, I don't even know how it works. I've never been on the level. It's just the way that I see it. So I'm probably like, I could be completely wrong in all of it, but that's sure what it looks like on the foundation. But the market speaks for itself, unless people stop supporting it. Yeah, but the problem is people are supporting it. So the mentality I have or the thoughts I have for you know, what I like are obviously the minority in terms of what the majority wants. But I think it's education on radio too. You know, when I listen to radio here in Canada on the West Coast, it's like, well, I don't listen to radio for one, because when I do put it on, it's like the same song. I remember having a video one time, I was clicking through 2 stations and they were playing the same song, but they were almost playing it at the same fucking time. Like I could switch the stations and it was like almost still in time. I was like, what the fuck is this? Is it the same program director at both these stations? How's that even possible? You know, but when I go down to the States, the times I've toured down there, way different education. And blues is like always like never been mainstream, but people are way more educated to it in the Midwest and the Southern US, at least from my experience, the times I've spent down there, than in Canada. Because, you know, people here are like, oh, Freddie Q and B.B. King. Yeah, I think I heard of them. Down there, it's like guys will come up to me and say like, hey man, I hear like Johnny Guitar Watson in your sound. And I'm like, how fuck you know? You're like younger than I am. How do you know who Johnny Guitar Watson is? You know, like I had to dig deep to find that one, touring with guys in BB's band, you know, and I'm like entrenched in that kind of stuff. And it was like, oh no, I like that kind of music, because there's blues stations, and the education, I think, for diversity is much different culture wise in other regions than, you know, where we live.
And the thing is, I think another thing that's kind of killed the industry here, you know, kind of going back to that, is down there's that culture. It's ingrained. It's what it is. But unfortunately here we've just got too many diverse ethnic groups. I mean, you know, we got, and you can't have, and it's made a lot of, because the population is diversified, it makes one certain type of music not as sustainable, you know. And then of course, you know, it's not on the radio, it's not played in the venues. People don't have the instant access to it unless they look it up. So they're not aware or hearing it, you know, like they would if you had access to a good blues bar, blues station or something where they're going to learn about this. And, you know, I think that's the double-edged sword. Is it's up to people to start learning and researching and about whatever music venue or music style that they want, you know, and I think it's happening with the younger generation, because also there's a 9-second blurb of, say, you know, some blues artist or some rocker, and then you see that I've seen the videos of these young kids reacting to, you know, hearing a drum solo from Genesis. Whoa! And then so I think there's going to be a resurgence of that, because everybody's getting away. Everybody's tired of the radio, because it's the same. People want something different. You know, and look at Long McQuaid still sells guitars. That's a sign that people are still playing, and I see younger people in there as well. So there's a hope that it's because it's out there now and it's more accessible. It's just not instantaneously there, but it is accessible. That, you know, we're going to see a resurgence of talent like Chris Tone Kingfish, and there's a young guitar player from Australia who's, I can't remember his name right now, but he's wicked, you know. And I think there's you know, a new hope with Star Wars, a new hope for blues, or, you know. So.
Well, there's no shortage of like next level talent out there, in my opinion. The problem is nobody knows it, because social media is like, your attention span is like less than 10 seconds. And there's just so much to choose from that you can't even focus. You know, you turn on Netflix, it takes you an hour to figure out what show to watch, and by the time you figure that out, you don't have time to watch a show anymore.
Exactly.
You know, so like there's lots of talent out there. The problem is, how does that talent prosper and develop and go to the next level? Because there's no money. People don't want to pay to listen to music.
Yeah, because it's instantaneous. You know, you got their Apple subscription or whatever.
Well, people will buy a $5 coffee or a $10 coffee, but they won't pay $10 for a band's album, like a digital version of it, or $20 for an album. Like, I guess what do you even do? Like, bands are slagging CDs off the side of the stage, but they don't even make cars with CD players. Like, I don't even have a CD player. Like, I have musicians go, here's my new album, and I'm like, well, this is great. I got nowhere to fucking play it. Like, I literally have a pile of CDs and I don't know where to play them. My laptop doesn't have a CD player. Like I'd have to go buy like an external USB CD player to play this shit. It's almost, you might as well give me a fucking 8-track.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's crazy.
I think it's what's, I mean, the other option, I guess, like it's, you know, even I'd thought about putting a, you know, like a thumb drive or a little, you know, that you can give out with a you know, your band email. But I mean, everything's just digital now. It's in the air. It's, you know, Bluetooth, everything, and Wi-Fi.
It's in the cloud. It's in the clouds. Not in a real
exactly.
space. You know. Got that one from Kamala Harris. It's in the clouds. It's in the clouds. In the space.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anywhere. You just get it. I don't know what it was. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing. Anyways, I don't know. We don't get too political on these things, but maybe sometimes we will.
Oh yeah, I always laugh because it's, you know, the old proverb. It's like, oh, you got the left or the right. It's the wings of the same bird. You know, people always look left or right to politics and argue when they should be looking up. And we're here and up there. Who's dangling the strings?
Who's pulling the strings? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird time, that's for sure. It's gonna be an interesting next few years, I think, with regards to everything. You know, economy, politics, music. You know, it's the new hopefully not the final frontier. You know, hopefully it's the new frontier. So,
for sure, man.
There.
Yes, some Star Wars in there. You Star Wars nerd.
Oh, both. I swing both ways, Star Wars and Star Trek.
oh shit, that a boy. I never got into that stuff. Never watched it.
It was good. You know, the Next Generation, heck, the first officer played jazz trombone, so that's kind of cool. You know, there's some music in there too, so
nice.
And who can forget the Cantina theme song, you know?
Me, because I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm a bit of a sci-fi junkie. What can I say? Guilty.
No, that's good, man. That's good. Well, we got to do some playing together at some point if you're, you know, taking a bit of a break from the film.
I'm probably not be doing film well into the new year. The Buccaneer is the bar tomorrow where the jam is.
The Buccaneer, yeah. Okay.
So Darren's gonna be special guest. I told them I'm gonna come down and check that out, and let me know when you're playing next, like the Dooney or whatever. I'll definitely come out. And
what are you doing Saturday?
Saturday, I don't think I have anything planned at this point. So, no, I'm going to be at a birthday party for Mike Mitchell, so Kelly's brother. It's his 50th.
Yeah, that's right. Kelly said you guys are swinging by because I'm going to be doing a fundraiser for John Hawley to help with his recovery and whatnot.
Oh, is that on Saturday at whereabouts is that?
That's at his place, just not far from Kelly's brother's place. You guys are out there in Hatzick, right?
Yeah, because the party's at the Hatzick Lake. But if I'm gonna get out there early afternoon, anyways. What time are you gonna be there?
Let's connect. We start at 5. I'm gonna probably be there before 5. So let's connect and come out and maybe we'll get Kelly to sing some tunes and you do some playing.
For sure.
That sounds. We'll get it out there because but the people are going to be watching this after all that's happened.
Yeah.
So we'll let you guys know how it went.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
For sure, man. But I appreciate you taking the time to have a chat and come on the show here. And
yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, absolutely, and definitely looking forward to jam with you soon and tear it up like we did at the Dooney a couple months ago.
For sure, absolutely, yeah, man. And send me any links and stuff to your socials that you want me to put, because I always put that in the description so that anybody watching the show that wants to connect with you or follow what you're doing, they'll have some easy access to the links.
Will do, for sure.
Cool, man.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much. You take care.
Cheers. You too.
Okay.
Bye.